Korean Tea Society, Dongkong University, Korea, Malaysia International Tea Culture Research Association, Malaysian Tea Industry Chamber of Commerce, Nepal Tea Association, Institute of Tea and Coffee from Queen Mother University, Thailand, Sri Lanka Tea Research Institute, and British Tea Council, as well as a number of universities and enterprises. In the interest of time, I will not introduce them one by one. Well, according to our statistics, for today's event, we have nearly 400 participants from 36 countries joining us today through online and offline channels, including Argentina, Australia, Austria, Bangladesh, Benin, Brunei, Cameroon, Canada, Guinea, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Iran, Italy, Japan, Korea, Laos, Liberia, Malawi, Malaysia, Nepal, Pakistan, Russia, Rwanda, Somalia, South Africa, Spain, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Turkey, Ukraine, United Kingdom, United States, Zimbabwe, and Zambia, as I mentioned, altogether about 400 participants from 36 countries joining us online and offline. Joining us today also include the following domestic participants, namely Wang Qinglin, Vice Minister of the International Liaison Department of China Association for Science and Technology, Mr. Chen Zongmao, Academician of CAE China Tea Science Society, Honorary Chairman, and Zhou Guofu, President of China International Tea Culture Research Institute, He Guanxin, President of Hangzhou Tea Culture Research Institute, and Ren Hua, Director and Party Secretary from Tea Research Institute of CNAS, Dong Wen, President of China Tea Science Society and Vice Director of Tea Research Institute of CAS, Liu Chengming, Director of the Tea Quality Supervision, Inspection and Testing Center of the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, Wu Jihong, Director of International Science and Technology Exchange Center of Zhejiang Association for Science and Technology, and Wang Yuefei, Director of Tea Research Institute of Zhejiang University, Wang Xufeng, Director of Zhejiang Agriculture and Forestry University, and Luo Liewan from Zhejiang Agriculture and Rural Department, Chen Zhongjie, Director of Vocational Building Division of Zhejiang Provincial Department of Human Resources and Social Security, Madam Bao Jing, Curator of China Tea Museum, and Dong Yangbin, Director of Training and Information Center of Hangzhou Tea Research Institute of All China Supply and Marketing Cooperatives. He Shaoqing, Member of the Party Committee and Vice President of EU Vocational and Technical College of Industry and Commerce. Chen Yupeng, Dean of School and International Education from EU Vocational and Technical College of Industry and Commerce. Madam Zhou Zhixiu, Executive Deputy Secretary General of China Tea Society. And Yu Liangzi, General Secretary General from China Tea Science Society, the Tea Ceremony Committee, and also Sun Chuhan, also from the China Tea Association. My name is Liang Yuerong. I'm the Vice President of CTSS, China Tea Science Society. Well, let's put our hands together and welcome all the guests joining us today. We have 5 items on the agenda. First of all, we'd like to invite Jiang Yongwen, President of China Tea Science Society, to give a welcome speech on behalf of today's host. President Zhou, Academician Chen, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, online and offline. Hello, everyone. Well, today we have tea people around the world gathering together to participate with the inaugural meeting of International Tea Culture Research and Training Center. First of all, on behalf of CTSS, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to all the distinguished guests who attend today's event, as well as to Academician Liu and all the other guests who sent their congratulatory messages. I'd also like to send my warm welcome to all the delegates joining the conference today. We are here to celebrate the establishment of the center. Well, we have three purposes. One, we want to introduce to the tea people around the world our background, our positioning, and our mission. And second, we'd like to listen to your suggestions for our future development. And third, I sincerely hope you could lend your support to the development of the center. And we believe with your support, the center will thrive and develop in a sound manner. We know that the Belt and Road Initiative is a Chinese answer and a practical platform for us to promote and build the community of human destiny. To achieve the goal of 5 links, well, we need to focus on linking people's hearts and people's minds. That is the foundation of the 5 links. So cultural integration is a key part of this link-forming process. Tea culture in this process should play a big role. CTSS to respond to the requirements of the Belt and Road Initiative, and with the aim to promote tea culture research and tea culture exchange, established this International Tea Culture Research and Training Center today. Well, our positioning and our management mechanism has been approved by the Executive Council, and as a platform for promoting tea culture, the center will definitely follow the principle of openness, sharing, cooperation, and win-win. We will continue to carry out exchanges with tea lovers and carry out exchanges and trainings with tea organizations and strengthen our cooperation with tea-related institutes. Tea as a medium and tea as a way to form friendship. We will definitely live up to our mission, and our exchanges will be conducted across languages and across ethnic groups. We will continue to innovate and to pass down our tea culture, and we will also absorb the merits of the Chinese tea culture. With that, we hope that more people will get to know tea, will drink tea and love tea, and we hope with that they will have a deeper understanding of the Chinese culture, and they will respect and recognize the Chinese culture. Finally, I'd like to thank you again for joining us today. I wish you good health, good luck, and all the best. Thank you. Well, the establishment of this center cannot be separated from the support of CAST, China Association for Science and Technology. And next, we'd like to invite Mr. Wang Qinglin, Vice Minister of International Liaison Department of China Association for Science and Technology, to give the speech.
尊敬的各位海内外茶人朋友们，大家好！在这阳光明媚的初冬，以线上线下相结合的形式，迎来了国际茶文化研究与培训中心的成立会议。我谨代表中国科学技术协会国际联络部，向本次会议的召开表示热烈的祝贺，向来自海内外的各位茶文化专家和爱好者表示真诚的欢迎和衷心的感谢。为积极响应“一带一路”倡议，切实推动“一带一路”科技人文交流走深走实，中国科协自2016年启动实施“一带一路”国际科技组织合作平台建设项目，打造国际科技合作的重要平台，构建各国民心相通、理解包容、互学互鉴、合作创新的桥梁。国际茶文化研究与培训中心是我们2020年度支持的建设项目之一。茶是世界3大饮品之一。2019年12月，联合国大会宣布每年5月21日为国际茶日，以赞美茶叶的经济社会和文化价值，促进全球农业的可持续发展。这是国际社会对茶叶价值的认可与重视。中国是茶的发源地，中国的茶文化有着悠久的历史和深厚的底蕴。国际茶文化研究与培训中心的建立，有助于增强文化自觉，坚定文化自信，并有效地推动中国茶文化在国际上的推广与传播。希望中国茶叶学会以“一带一路”沿线国家、社团和机构，在以茶文化为媒介，积极开展交流合作，促进各国人民能够更直接、更深入地了解对方的生活方式和思想方式，了解对方的价值观，实现真正意义上的文化交流。最后，提前预祝本次会议取得圆满成功，也预祝各位在之后的茶文化讲座中有所收获。祝大家生活愉快，身体健康。谢谢。
Thank you, Mr. Wang. The Tea Research Institute of Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences is the supporting unit of the society and has always given great support to the society. Therefore, let's put our hands together to welcome Mr. Jiang Renhua, CBC Secretary, Research Fellow and Director of Tea Research Institute of China Academy of Agricultural Sciences. Distinguished President Zhou Guofu, Distinguished Vice Chairman Sun Zhonghua, and President He Guanxin, Academician Chen Zongmao, and the support of CAST, and also with the joint effort made by our friends home and abroad. We're very happy to gather together, connecting online and offline to celebrate the inaugural meeting of International Tea Culture Research and Training Center. First of all, on behalf of the Tea Research Institute of China Academy of Agriculture Science, to extend our big welcome to all of you and a big thanks to all of you. Great congratulations on the establishment of the center. The Tea Research Institute
is the one and only national first-class academy in Zhejiang province. For a long time, it has actively promoted the tea education, conducting a variety of tea academic exchanges, making great contributions for the tea industries. With the establishment of tea culture research diseases instead of cure the diseases. Therefore, I think drinking tea is a very good way to prevent diseases and to keep a very healthy diet. If Chinese people and the people in the world can join hands together, if we all have a very healthy lifestyle, a healthy diet by drinking tea, then we can all enjoy the benefits from drinking tea. Then we can enjoy a very healthy lifestyle. So both physically and mentally, I believe that tea has the benefit to refresh our spirit and refresh our body at the same time. So I believe that the COVID-19, the biggest problem is that we need to enhance our immunity, our strength to prevent diseases. So in the very context, drinking tea is a very good way for it to prevent diseases and to improve our immunity. The day after tomorrow, I will give a lecture around the relationship between the traditional Chinese tea culture and the health of the entrepreneurs, as well as the health of the company. So I believe that the very health of the entrepreneurs is closely linked to the health of the company, and all of which can be supported by drinking tea. So with the development of the new technology, as well as the national economy, I believe that tea is evolving itself at the same time. So for the tea, we've got different kinds of new technologies. Say different people in different countries may have different habits of drinking tea, so they will add milk or sugar into the teas. And we have developed new ways of producing teas. So with those new methodologies coming in producing tea, we can anticipate that tea will be more welcomed and popular around the world. And some of the farmers were now developing a new treatment through herbal teas. Say in traditional Chinese classics of Shen Nong, who has tasted hundreds of kinds of herbs before he come up with the treatment of the diseases. But now we've got new ideas, new methodologies in treating diseases through a mixture of the herbs and teas. In Han Dynasty, for the very first time, tea was being used as a drug for the very first time in the Chinese history. So we've got a special way to create the dosage of the drug through tea. And the next point I'd like to share with you is the tea derivatives, or the byproducts. So we can create a variety of tea byproducts. And many of them can be taken as nutrients. And the next point I'd like to make is that we need to make concerted efforts and enjoy the tea, share exchanges with the main players in the industry. So I hope that Through such collaborations, we can engage more people coming into the tea drinkings. So only by engaging increasing number of people to become the tea fellows can we further transmit the benefits of tea. So I believe that those above mentioned proposals are very important to promote the tea culture. Not just the tea culture from China, but also from all around the world. We need to find the common ground of the tea culture among all the countries and give the full play of their benefit so that we can bring the benefits to all the people, making and enabling people to have a healthier lifestyle through tea. Last but not least, I'd like to wish this complete success and wish you a good health, a good life. Thank you. Thank you, President Zhou. Thank you for your great encouragement to our society, who has showed his great passion and his care to the whole human society, whose comments have made an important way and direction for our future development. Thank you again for your excellent speech. Dear leaders and guests, for a long time, China Tea Science Society has been supported by all of you. So that wraps up the first session of today's event. Let's give another round of applause to thank all of our speakers. Thank you.
Next, we will enter the second agenda, the inaugural ceremony of the International Tea Culture Research and Training Center. And for this part, we'd like to invite Academician Chen Zongmao and President Jiang Yongwen from China Tea Science Society to take the stage to unveil the center. Thank you, Academician Chen and President Jiang. We hope the center, once established, can write a new chapter in the foreign exchange of China tea culture. Academician Chen, Academician Liu, and representatives from many organizations at home and abroad have sent congratulatory messages on the establishment of this International Tea Culture Research and Training Center. And next, let's watch this video together.
From Australia. My name is David Lyons, and on behalf of all members of the Australian Tea Cultural Society, I would like to wish you all the very best of health in this difficult time. Can I finish off by congratulating all who have been involved in this tremendous project, particularly the team at CTSS. But for now, let's look forward to a time very soon when we can all meet face to face and enjoy.
Hello, I'm Professor Fu. I'm professor at the Hello, I'm Professor Fu. I'm professor at the Institute of Food Science and Human Nutrition of the Leibniz University Hannover in Germany. and warm congratulations on the establishment of International Tea Culture Research and Training Center by China Tea Science Society. Good luck. Bye-bye.
국제 차문화 연구와 교육센터 창립식을 진심으로 축하드립니다. 이번 창립식을 계기로 해서 중국 차문화가 세계 모든 나라에 보급되고 발전될 수 있기를 기대를 하겠습니다. 저희 국제 티클럽도 아낌없는 지지와 협력을 강화해 나가도록 하겠습니다. 진심으로 축하드립니다.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Lilian Xia, the president of Canada Tea Institute. Congratulations to the establishment of International Tea Culture Research and Training Center by China Tea Science Society. It is my pleasure to join this meeting, and I wish it a great success.
Hi, I'm Shabnam Weber, and I'm the president of the Tea and Herbal Association of Canada. I wanted to send a big congratulations on this inaugural meeting of the International Tea Culture Research and Training Center. I truly look forward to being a part of this organization and being there with you in person sometime soon. Until then, I raise my cup to all that you do and say thank you.
It is a great honor to represent and speak on behalf of millions of tea lovers from Malaysia. Congratulations to China Tea Science Society on the establishment of International Tea Culture Research and Training Center. I'm glad to celebrate this day with you. Keep leading the way.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm CK Liu from Malaysia Tea Association and ASEAN Tea Organization. Congratulations on the establishment of International Tea Culture Research and Training Center by Chinese Tea Science Society.
I'm Ganesh Rai, Vice President of Nepal Tea Association, the only tea producer and entrepreneurs forum of Nepal. Would like to congratulate on the establishment of International Tea Culture Research and Training Center by China Tea Culture Society.
My name is Assistant Professor Dr. Piyaphorn Cheomchai-Trakul, Head of Tea and Coffee Institutes of Mea Fah Luang University. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to China Tea Science Societies to approve projects of International Tea Cultural Research and Training Center.
Hello, I'm Wang Yalei, the chairman of Chinese Tea Association of Japan. Congratulations on establishment of International Tea Culture Research and Training Center by China Tea Science Society.
Hello, my name is Dr. Sharon Hall, and I am the Chief Executive of the United Kingdom Tea and Infusions Association. On behalf of my members and myself, I would like to wish you congratulations on the establishment of the International Tea Research and Training Center by the China Tea Society. I very much look forward to visiting, and I wish you a successful launch meeting.
Hello, I'm Chen Zhongmo of Tea Research Institute, Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences. Congratulations on the establishment of International Tea Culture Training and Research Center.
Hello, I'm Professor Zhonghua Liu from Tea Science Department of Hunan Agriculture University. Tea is the most health drinks in the world. It is more and more popular in the world. Congratulations on the establishment of International Tea Culture Research and Training Center by China Tea Science Society. One word, one cup of tea.
大家好，我是海峡两岸茶叶交流协会会长陈少军。茶香飘四海，
共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶协会成立国际茶文化研究与培训中心。
各位朋友，大家好，我是中国茶叶流通协会会长、全国茶叶标准化技术委员会主任委员王庆。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶学会成立国际茶文化研究与培训中心。
大家好，我是中国农业科学院茶研究所研究员鲁成颖。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶学会成立国际茶文化研究与培训中心。
我是中华茶人联谊会的辉赛明。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶学会茶文化研究与培训中心成立。
大家好，我是华侨茶叶发展研究基金会理事长邵曙光。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶学会成立国际茶文化研究与培训中心。
大家好，我是中国食品土区进出口商会茶叶行业秘书长。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶学会成立国际茶文化研究与培训中心。
大家好，我是全国供销总社杭州茶叶研究院郑国建。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶学会成立国际茶文化研究与培训中心。
我是浙江农林大学茶文化学院的王旭峰。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶学会成立国际茶文化研究与培训中心。
大家好，我是浙江大学王岳飞。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶学会成立国际茶文化研究与培训中心。
大家好，我是中国茶叶博物馆馆长包静。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶学会成立国际茶文化研究与培训中心。
大家好，我是中国茶叶拍卖交易服务有限公司吴鹤春。茶香飘四海，共饮一杯茶，热烈祝贺中国茶叶协会成立
Thank you very much. Thank you, representatives from the board, for your congratulatory messages. And next, we'll move on to the fourth item on the agenda, the release of the English version of CTSS's 4 group standards. We know that group standards are an important part of China's standardized management system. China Tea Science Society is a national first-class academic social organization recognized by the National Group Standards Information Platform. And it is also the largest professional academic association of tea science in China. So far, we have issued 7 group standards, and more than 30 group standards are under preparation. In order to better promote the international exchange in the field of standards and promote the popularization of tea culture, the society has actively compiled relevant standards. And today we're going to release 4 English versions. They are the technical regulation of occupational skills competition in tea ceremony, evaluation regulation for level of tea ceremony for teens, and evaluation regulation for level of Chinese tea ceremony, and evaluation regulation for tea sensory evaluation. Well, these 4 standards, the English version, as you can see on the screen, they are about to be put into effect very soon. Moving on to the last item on the agenda, the awarding ceremony of overseas member contact points of China Tea Society to strengthen communication of overseas members of CTSS, to build a bridge between them, and to enhance the integrity of overseas members and facilitate the organization of overseas tea activities. CTSS have set up overseas member contact points. The first members are located in Canberra, Australia, Toronto, Canada, Iksan, Korea, Tokyo, Japan, and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So these are the first batch of our contact points. And next, we'd like to invite Mr. Jiang Yongwen, Chairman of CTSS, and Luo Lianwan, Executive Director of CTSS, to take the stage and to award the contact points for overseas members. Thank you. Finally, I'd like to thank you again for joining us today. I'd like to thank all the online members for watching this entire meeting. And with that, I'd like to conclude the inaugural meeting of the International Tea Culture Research and Training Center. And we will have 2 tea culture lectures in the second part of today's meeting. We'll have a 5 minutes break, and I'll see you soon.
其实切到这个播放的画面，这个播放嘛，等会儿来了就直接可以。这里够响，这个不行，不够响。他那边还在看视频。
四川芙蓉门天地乾坤长嘴湖功夫茶艺表演。玉波荡香。 玉波荡香人世魂，雪浪喷珠桂枝醇。出水芙蓉。 清
水茶香出芙蓉，天然绿雪去雕饰。
降龙行雨，天似降龙盘古城，及时行雨润芙蓉。
意境现代，平生一物圆舞曲，清响山中茶一杯。
悬浮记事，悬浮调间黄蕊色，记事婉转举尘华。天外飞仙，青山绿水君常伴，天外极品似飞仙。肝胆相照，茶根水胆相照喷香，人杰地灵妙间环蕊。宁静致远，宁静致远盛世茶，淡泊名利享豁达。二泉映月，一级甘露几欲仙，二泉映月嫦娥来。醍醐灌顶，五行酿出真皮壶，悟道灌顶金茶品。上善若水，水善利万物而不争，茶平耗众生且得谦。凤凰涅槃，凤凰涅槃，常心有叹，浴火重生，明镜不尽。
女士们、先生们，茶文化讲座即将开始，请各位就座。Ladies and gentlemen, the lecture on tea culture is about to start. Please be seated. Thank you.
Distinguished leaders, guests, dear friends online. Now we will proceed to the lecture part of today's event. Today we have two lectures. First of all, we'll give a lecture about the brief history of tea culture in China, given by Yu Liangzi, a member of Xilin Printing Society. Yu Liangzi is currently the Secretary General of the Tea Ceremony Professional Committee of China Tea Science Society, who has been engaged in tea culture research for a very long time, and who has multiple achievements in the research of the tea culture, who has published around 3 million words in his publications. Without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Yu Liangzi. Let's welcome. Dear experts and tea fellows from online and offline, good afternoon. China has a very long-lasting tea culture and history. In the interest of time, we couldn't possibly cover all of them. So I can only draw light on the highlights of the tea culture and tradition in China's history, by which I mean that I will highlight on some of the key milestones in the long-lasting tea culture and history in China, which will represent the tea evolvement. The Chinese tea history all derived from the Shen Nong, who tasted hundreds of herbs for the treatment of diseases. So it's either a myth or a legend, which has been highly recognized by Chinese people from the Shen Nong in Warring States period. So the first book of tea was written by Lu Yu, who has illustrated as a quote that tea as a beverage began with Shen Nong and was spread by King Zhou Gong of the state of Lu. On the left bottom side, it's a monument from Han Dynasty, which depicts the very person of Shen Nong. Shen Nong's period has created the manual farming period. So before that, people tend to collect fruits or vegetables. Starting from Shen Nong, we started farming from the land. Shen Nong is the first person who tastes hundreds of herbs for the treatment of diseases, and the very person who has discovered the usage of tea. So tea was discovered from that period of time. However, the very origin of tea was dated far back, even before the Shen Nong period. However, Shen Nong marks an important milestone of the tea history. So some of the objects that we can see that bore the witnesses of the evolvement of tea are the tea trees. For example, the wild tea trees in Yunnan province, and also this one with around 23.6 meters in height. This is a wild tea tree in Bada in Yunnan province. So all of those tea trees have grown in a very natural way without human interferences. And this one is the Asian tea tree in Bangwei, also from Yunnan province. In many of our textbooks, we will take it as a kind of tree that has been a transition from the natural wild tree to the human interference. So this is the very first tree we have seen the interference from human beings. The very tea culture originated from the interference of human beings. So that's all the marks that we can attract from the wild trees. If you look at the books or literatures, most of them were written from the Book of Tea. say a Shenlong spoke of food as a quote, long-time consumption of tea invigorates one's body and mood. As early as Shenlong's period, we have seen the text written down about how tea can benefit the human bodies. So the first benefit is that it can invigorate our body, it can enhance our immunity, and also it can benefit a lot to our mood. So physically and spiritually, tea is highly beneficial to human beings. So although there are very few words covering its benefit, but such benefits were seen from those early textbooks. And from the Yanzi's Spring and Autumn Annals, we can see that as early as Yanzi's Spring and Autumn period, people has taken tea as a kind of food. So not just as a drug, tea can also be taken as a diet food. In the Chinese tea culture and history, the drugs and food are the same thing. Sometimes we couldn't possibly distinguish if this is a food or a drug. It's only up to the occasion that it was consumed that we can tell the differences. Sometimes we couldn't possibly tell which comes the first. Logically, both are possible, but from my personal views, I would take the food as a first step before it's been consumed as a drug. Without taking it as a food or as a beverage, we couldn't possibly find out its drug usages. So for me personally, I would take it that the food comes the first before it can be consumed as a drug. But in the textbook, it's not written down who comes the first. So beverage will come later from the drugs or herbal medicines. In our tradition, food, herbal medicine, and beverages, they come together throughout the history, throughout these periods. It couldn't possibly change due to the mere change of the periods in history, because three come together to give the full play. So first of all, it will tap into the physical need. The most interesting part of it is the beverage. So in beverage, it not only have a very functional usages or functional benefits to the physical bodies, but it also exerts the refreshing of our mood. So sometimes when I was given lectures, I would tell my students that it will bring the same benefits. So sometimes I will encourage my students to enjoy without much of the focus on the functional effects.
So apart from physical demands, it could also meet our spiritual needs. So these are the two functions, the due functions of tea. That's the foundation of the Chinese tea culture. From Shenlong period to the Spring and Autumn Annals, that period could be seen as the initial development stage of Chinese tea culture. And the Qin and Han Dynasty can be seen as a period where tea has achieved further development, or the budding period. As you can see, master-slave contracts completed in 59 BC by Wang Bao of the Western Han Dynasty can be seen as an evidence of tea use in Western Han Dynasty. And in this document, the applications of tea in people's daily life can be seen in great details. From this document, you can see two typical application scenarios. The first is brewed tea with cleaned tea sets. The second is by quality tea in Wuyang. And here you can see here you can get three important pieces of message.
One, there are tea wares for special use, and second, there is tea trade back then, and three, they have tea drinks in daily lives. And where we also have some relics to further prove our point. For instance, this is an unearthed tea jar dated back to the Eastern Han Dynasty. Why do we believe this is a jar used for drinking tea? Well, there is a Chinese character, tea, embodied on the jar. So this jar is used especially for tea, not, say, wine or other drinks. And also, in the document, as I mentioned in the last page, on top of the document, on top of the information we get from that document, we also have some further evidence and further discoveries. We found actual tea leaves in the mausoleum of Emperor Jingdi of the Han Dynasty. This is quite remarkable because tea leaves are normally very difficult to store. And Emperor Jingdi, he lived in an era that was 100+ years earlier than the time when the previous document was dated. So here, as you can see, this is the size of the tea leaf. It is very similar to the tea leaves of today. Based on these archaeological evidence, we can form a clearer understanding of tea development in the Western Han Dynasty. All these Chinese characters all mean tea. Before Han Dynasty, tea, or the character of tea is written in different ways. For instance, jia, cha, she, and etc. Or tu. This character has two sounds. When we use it to mean tea, it is pronounced cha. In Western Han Dynasty, this character was once pronounced cha instead of tu. For instance, this one, shi. This means tea as well, but only in the southwest part of China, among 8 ethnic groups. So these different characters again gives us another perspective of understanding tea. Moving on to the Southern and Northern Dynasty, the Wei-Jin Southern and Northern Dynasties. This is the birth of the Chinese tea culture. This is an important time point. The essence of Chinese tea culture was formed during this period of time. In Guangya, a document by Zhang Yi of the Three Kingdoms period, he mentioned the processing technique of making tea. The first step is harvest tea leaves to make tea cakes. The second is to mix tea leaves with water. Actually, during this period of time, they also add other ingredients into tea, for instance, spring onions, garlic, and ginger. And thirdly, in this document, it's also mentioned that tea could help recover from drunkenness and refresh one's mind. This still is about the function of tea. And in the Qing Dynasty, tea culture is further developed. It has some aesthetic values. In Qing Dynasty, as we can see from the documents written back then, children, they sometimes mimic their parents and brew teas. And also, as mentioned in one of the documents, it says tea prevails all the other 6 beverages. And the aroma of tea spreads far to the entire country. Tea is considered a posh drink for home dining. It is better than drinking wine. This is the aesthetic understanding of tea. This is a classic work featuring tea. This is Ode to Tea by Du Yu of Qing Dynasty. And in this Ode to Tea, tea is given a major place in this article. It mentions how to select water for the tea sets, how to select water and how to select tea sets, and when and where to harvest tea, for instance, in autumn time. And he also mentioned we need to follow certain rules and certain procedures when preparing tea or the tea ceremony. He borrowed some concepts from, say, drinking wine. And he also gave some comments for the tea soup. He's actually the first person that approached tea from this perspective, from this aesthetic perspective, instead of the function of tea. He described tea, the color, the tone of the soup, and the beauty of tea in great details. So in Du Yu's perspective, tea is more than a regular thing. In Wei Jin and Southern and Northern Dynasty, tea's role in social etiquette and manners first emerged. People started to replace wine with tea. Well, tea can be seen as a drink given to the other to show their respect. So instead of giving the senior the wine to show his respect, he chose to give the emperor a cup of tea to show his respect. Another document is written by Lu Na. Lu Na was the governor of Wuxing County, and General Xie An is a senior official from the central government. As you can see, Lu Na, he's only a local governor, but General Xie An, he's a central senior official. So though they, in terms of ranking, they are far away from each other, but they have similar values. They share their ideas. So General Xie and the senior official went to visit Luna, and when he was there, Luna only entertained General Xian with a cup of tea as a way to show hospitality. And this is another document saying that when the emperor returned from afar, the monarch was first greeted by a cup of tea presented in a clay pot. In Jin Dynasty, we also have people selling tea on the street, and the tea seller gave all the earnings to the helpless and the poor beggars along the road. And also in the Southern and Northern Dynasty, we also have tea porridges. Tea porridges as a breakfast, as a snack. It's just regular daily item. And also we see that tea is used in a wide range of activities and in a lot of scenarios. For instance, I just mentioned tea porridge. This is a common daily thing. And for the emperor, for the sacrifices to the emperor's funeral, for instance, the emperor in Southern Qi Dynasty, before he passed away, he said, "Do not use cattle, sheep, or pigs or other animals as sacrifices to my funeral. Just use some tea, some snacks, some fruits would be enough." So tea is also used as a sacrifice. This is the document, a new account of the tales in the world in Southern and Northern dynasties. Well, in this document, we can see that some people have obsessions with tea, and some prefer to have tea before meals. So in the Southern and Northern dynasties, the general public and the emperor, the senior officials, they all love tea, and they all have an abundant range of food to choose from. So tea became even more popular as a life necessity during that period of time. And by that time, tea processing and brewing techniques are also formalized. Tea culture is being shaped, and tea is also mentioned in literatures. The aesthetic value of tea actually is in line with the purposes of the educated.
That point is very important. And if you look at the Sui, the Tang, and Song dynasties, throughout the Chinese tea history, we have defined Sui, Tang, and Song dynasty as the prime or the blooming period in the history. Sometimes we combine them together. It's the high time for the tea history, a climax of tea culture. So if we wrap up the conclusions, we can see the followings. First of all, we have seen the developed tea making technology, the formation of a preliminary tea study system. So we have seen the framework of the tea study, diversity of tea-related activities, arts, and literatures. So literaries, they have expressed themselves through tea. A further probe of tea aesthetics. So to some level, it has become an art, and the art has been further elevated to the spiritual level. Last but not least, the frequent tea cultural exchanges with other countries or regions. So the gravity of the tea exchanges were from Tang Dynasty all the way to the contemporary period. So if we have a deep dive, first of all, about the established rules and requirements of processing or brewing teas. In the Book of Tea by Lu Yu, we have seen such techniques. In the Book of Tea, we can use 7 words to conclude the processing period, the processing process. Of course, it's not the unique way of production, but it marks as a very good way of production. According to the Book of Tea, this marked as an exemplar, a rule set up, or a standard everyone is benchmarked against. So these 7 processing stages. How do we drink teas? The drinking process can also be concluded in 7 steps. From the drying of the cake to all the way to the boiling of the tea. We've got the 5 steps within. Each of the steps will require very high techniques, especially the boiling water part, which I have highlighted through the bold font. So boiling is very important among all the steps. According to Lu Yu, the Book of Tea is one of the most significant steps. In Tang Dynasty, the good taste of the tea is absolutely up to how you boil the water. So water boiling is very important among all these 7 steps. And to some extent, when the tea has evolved in its commons, we have seen the tea house trading. That is targeted to the minority groups, where the minority groups will exchange their halls for tea from the mainland China. So many of the minority ethnic groups will have their tea fleet and to come to the fair, trade their halls, exchange for the tea. After Song Dynasty, it's mainly conducted by the government officials, but before Song Dynasty, it's more about the civil activities. And such transactions has all the way throughout to the Qing Dynasty. So it started from the Tang Dynasty. In Tang Dynasty, there is a very famous thing happened. We call it the Imperial Tea Court. The Imperial Tea Court is a very special department in China for the way of giving tea as the state gift to the emperors. So taking tea as the state gift to the emperors is a very special activity in traditional Chinese dynasties. So the earliest stage we have seen Yangxian tea being gifted to the emperors, but not long later that Yangxian tea was consumed and the quantity was not enough. Therefore, people has changed to Zisuan tea. So they created Imperial Tea Court, which has defined the market rules and the top techniques in producing tea. Since Tang Dynasty was started, the first tea tax. At first, Tang started the tea taxation for some while, and then suspended for a while, and restarted again. At that time, the tax rate was around 10% towards tea, which is really high. So it also testified that tea has very high economic value in Tang Dynasty. Also in Tang Dynasty, we have seen the tea houses, which also is highly relevant with the Buddhism development. Because of the Buddhism culture that we have seen the arising of tea houses. In Tang Dynasty, we have seen the Book of Tea written by Lu Yu. As I said, that marked the very formation of the tea cultural system. It has concluded all the tea culture before Tang Dynasty. So all of the history previous to Tang Dynasty were written and recorded down by Lu Yu in his Book of Tea. It also embarked on a new way of the exploration on tea culture. In Lu Yu's Book of Tea, it has mentioned that tea, the drinking of tea, is also related to the virtue of the people. So tea, as a quote, which tastes bitter and cold, was a very drink for those living a simple yet noble life. So it's relevant with the virtue of people. Before Lu Yu, we certainly mentioned about the virtue of people and the tea. We can wrap up Lu Yu's ideas in the following words: that a sip for simplicity and life integrity. So in Lu Yu's idea, tea is a way to express one's personality, one's mindset, one's ambitions. So Book of Tea by Lu Yu, if we take a cultural perspective, it's not just a technical book, but more of a cultural book. Tang Dynasty, we have also seen a number of tea poems. Say some of the poems have mentioned the truth of tea in Chinese literature. According to A Song of Tea by my friend by Jiao Ran, who has mentioned about the truth of tea. At the same time, in Tang Dynasty, another person, Feng Yan, has mentioned the truth of tea. A deep dive into the techniques of tea production by showing the truth of tea. So the truth of tea in Tang Dynasty not just shown in its technical perspective, but also in its spiritual perspective. So that has wrapped up the truth of tea. Some other poems have showcased the techniques. For example, the great tea I tried at the temple in Xishan by Liu Yuxi, which has mentioned about the frying of tea leaves, the tea brewing, and the display of personality. And it has been shown by one incident that he has encountered in the temple. The expressions of teas were very profound, not just technical but also spiritual. For example, a poem by Lu Tong, who has expressed in a very deep way of how he felt when drinking tea. So the feelings while drinking tea is not just a drink in itself. It's not just about treating diseases or about the food. It's more of a spiritual enjoyment. Throughout the poem, what he has expressed not about the tea as a food, but or as a drug, but as an enjoyment. In Tang Dynasty, we have seen the travel of the tea to the globe, say the Japanese monks. The Japanese monks like Zui Chen and Kong Hai, who have come to learn Buddhism during the Tang Dynasty and has taken the tea back to Japan. And also we have seen tea seeds were brought to Xile on the Korean Peninsula and also to Tubo over the whole West China and Middle Asia. Tea has also been exported to West Asia, Europe, and South and Southeast Asia via the ports like Guangzhou, Quanzhou, Mingzhou, and Jiaozhou. Those are about the Tang Dynasty. If you look at the Song Dynasty, actually it has made an extra move towards the perfection of tea culture. For example, in Song Dynasty, the Emperor Taizu of the Song Dynasty has said, and I quote, that teas as a tribute to the imperial family in the Song Dynasty were cake-shaped and designated Beiyuan, where people use special molds inscribing imperial symbols to make their teas different from the ordinary. So emperors drinking tea should be better than the civil public. Since Song Dynasty, people tend to emphasize a lot on the quality of the teas and the cultural connotations embodied by the teas. So we have seen the tea culture of this period being even more sophisticated and refined. For example, some of the phoenix and dragons symbolic about teas. So this is a chart about the Longtuan Shengxue. So we started from the dragon cakes and phoenix cakes, and has been further elevated to the little dragon cakes, further to the refined dragon cakes, and all the way to the Ruiyuan Xianglong, auspicious dragons cakes, all the way to the Longtuan Shengxue. So we started from the a larger size to the smaller size. So to the Hui Emperor in Song Dynasty, from the Xianping period in Hui Emperor to the Xuanhe period of Hui Emperor, around 120 years. It took Song Dynasty 120 years to reach its climax in its tea technique. The so-called Long Yuan Shengxue is the top among all the tea. So the best quality of the materials is Dangyang in tea. Is Dangyang the best? Actually, it's not the best. We need to break it down and get the bud of the tea leaf to create the best top tea. So Longyuan Shengxue reached the climax of the tea production, and no one can compete that ever since. So Song Dynasty has reached the top. It took them 120 years to reach that level. And the tasting and enjoyment of teas, we have a classification of such tasting: the rating, tea brewing, and ritual games. The tea brewing is a specific processing of tea. So for the quality rating and reviewing, we call it tea rating. If it's only for the entertainment, we call it the ritual games. So after the tea brewing, what it's for, we've got different names for the ultimate outcomes or goals. All of them should be based upon the tea brewing techniques. This is the tea party by Emperor Huizong of the Song Dynasty, the tea painting showing an imperial tea party. And also this is a tea party popular among the educated class by Liu Songnian, the tea party. So all of them were called painting. All of them are very realistic because they showcased the costumes of the people living in that dynasty, the performance, behaviors, and the techniques of the teas. This is a very good reference for we to dive into the research about tea in Song Dynasty.
We also have tea houses in Song Dynasty. We mentioned that tea house was first initiated in Tang Dynasty. But in Song Dynasty, we have further developed these tea houses. Actually, we have a whole range of different tea houses, all operating using different business models. For instance, some may feature snacks and tea, some may feature flour and tea, and etc. Some may be high-end and decent and classy, and some may be not that high-end and crowded. And we also have a wealth of literatures on tea studies in Song Dynasty. In Tang Dynasty, we only had about 5 to 6 books on tea, but for Song Dynasty, we have over 3,000 publications on tea studies, especially literatures on Gongcha, or the tea gifts presented to the emperor. All of these are described in great details. And we also see literatures on tea processing techniques and tea brewing ceremonies.
And also during Song Dynasty, we have lots of literatures on special sectors of tea use. For instance, Tea Sets by Shen An the Elder. This is the first book on tea sets. The study on tea rating and review by Huang Ru. This is a book completely focused on tea rating and review. And the last one is the Emperor Laws of Tea by Shen Huo. So in Song Dynasty, we have lots of literatures, as I mentioned, on some very specific areas of tea. This is the artworks, but there are so many of them, like poems, calligraphic works, proses, paintings, and etc. For instance, during Song Dynasty, people drink tea to cool down during summertime. People give tea to their parents to show their respect. Moving on to Yuan Dynasty, this is actually a transformational period for tea development. From tea cakes evolving to powder teas, we see a growing range of tea diversities. We have leaf tea, ground tea, and tribute tea. In Wang Zhen's The Book of Farming in 1313, he recorded for the first time the technique of making steamed loose tea. And we also see more options for savoring the tea in Yuan Dynasty. This is the book completed by a Mongolian. It talks about the correct way of using tea, of drinking and putting tea in meals. For instance, it talked about Lang Gao and Su Qian. Both are buttered tea varieties that taste rich in flavors. And he also talked about Qing Cha, a fried tea brewed in butts, with butts only. During this period of time, we also see a lot of artworks. And the focus of these artworks sometimes is landscape. Artists trying to use landscape to showcase their political views. They may paint the landscape surrounding tea houses and to showcase their solitary preferences. Moving on to Ming and Qing Dynasty. Well, actually, this is a clear line between Ming Qing Dynasty and the time before it. Before that, the focus is often tea gifted to the emperor, and after Ming and Qing Dynasty, people start to drink loose tea. For instance, here it says Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang gave a decree in 1391 that the emperor tribute's tea must be delivered in loose leaves or sprouts straight coming from farmers. And 6 months later, he ordered to terminate the production of tribute teas from Jining. Instead, they requested people to present loose tea leaves, and cake tea tributes were formally abolished. He considered this cake tea tribute a luxury thing. Bon and commoner Zhu Yuanzhang abolished such extravagance. And here you can see these 4 different varieties: Tanchun, Xianchun, Sutron, and Zisun. These 4 varieties actually were first created in Yuan Dynasty. And actually also from Yuan Dynasty, loose tea started to take place, and in Ming and Qing Dynasty, they further developed and gained the leading part. By the years between Ming and Qing Dynasty, we have basically formed the major 6 varieties of Chinese tea, namely green tea, yellow tea, dark tea, white tea, oolong tea, and black tea. Before Ming Dynasty, was mainly green tea, but after that, we have altogether 6 categories. We have altogether 150 renowned tea varieties established in the Ming Dynasty, and all of them are refreshing, and all of them remain their very nature color and their very nature taste. We also have a lot of tea literatures emerged in Ming Dynasty. Well, basically all of those books are about the personal experiences of drinking tea or brewing tea or processing tea. Also in Ming Dynasty, we see lots of technical innovations. For instance, innovative ways of infusion. And also in Ming Dynasty, they had more refined brewing techniques like tea first, water, tea, water, or tea second, or tea last, water first. The tea records by Zhang Yuan, well, personally, I think is a top-notch book on refining brewing techniques. It is a book that studies the nature of tea and explore the truth of tea. And he also talked about tea ceremony in his book. This is the 3rd time that tea ceremony is mentioned. He talked about 3 characters in his book about making tea, 精造节, or clean, dry, and refined. So it is a simple process, but it is also a complex one. Well, the changes in way of drinking also give birth to the purple clay tea sets. Before, well, in Ming Dynasty, time and space are very important in terms of tea drinking. And in one document, that also talks about different seasons and the tea drinking against different landscapes and different scenarios. For instance, take a sip in springtime when flowers are about to prosper and willows to dance. Take a sip in summertime best in a waterside pavilion with grass-tag pine trees drenched by moonlight, and etc. And well, before Ming Dynasty, before those documents, we tend to be very strict about when and where to drink tea. But in Ming Dynasty, people started to get more tolerant. People believe that you could actually enjoy your tea anytime, anywhere. Tea drinking is also more fun in this period of time. For instance, we see lots of songs, dances, and local operas featuring tea. For instance, tea picking song, tea picking opera, and etc. They get popular in lots of Chinese provinces, for instance, Hunan, Hubei, and etc. And tea is also frequently mentioned in fictions and proses, and also in paintings and ink and wash paintings as well. Sometimes tea can be seen as a source of inspiration by artists. For instance, this is a work done by Wu Changshu. He actually got his inspiration from tea, and the achievements of Wu Changshu is inseparable with tea. And moving on, tea and people's lives are further integrated. Tea becomes a part of people's daily lives. People greet guests with tea. People take tea as a wedding gift. And tea can also be a state gift, giving and presenting in presented at national banquets. And tea houses, they are also not only places for drinking tea, but also a venue for performances and etc. So the functions of tea houses also got widened. We often say that Chinese operas, Chinese opera performances are often born in those tea houses. We also have different tea customs. For instance, we have Kung Fu tea in Chaozhou and Shantou. We have milk tea in Mongolian and Uyghur, and Uyghur and butter tea in the Tibetan region, and etc. All of these different tea customs are closely related to the local cultures.
And such diversity has all along carried forward all the way till today. So we are using a very rough strokes to paint out the history of tea. All boils down to one sentence, that China is the homeland of tea. The research into the tradition and history of Chinese tea is to look back, but looking back is for the benefit of looking into the future. That's all from me. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yu, for giving us such a brilliant, insightful presentation about the tea culture and history, who has given us a very expressive presentation about the tea culture. So apart from the tea culture and history, we focus more about tea itself. We all know that tea comes from a huge varieties, and we can conclude them into 6 categories. If we were to separate them, therefore we'd like to give the floor to researcher Lu Chenying. Well, today, researcher Lu is about to give us a lecture about the 6 rudiments, basic knowledge about the 6 major tea categories. Mr. Liu Chenyin is the director of the Tea Quality Supervision, Inspection and Testing Center of the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, who is the chief expert of the Tea Quality and Risk Assessment Innovation Team of Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences, the chief scientific communication expert of the China Association for Science and Technology, who has been deeply engaged in the research of tea quality standards and published 12 national industry standards, edited 9 books, and published more than 60 papers, who's got a lot of experiences in this regard. So without further ado, let's put our hands together to welcome researcher Liu Chenyin to give us this lecture. Good afternoon. It's my great honor to have this opportunity and share with you the basic knowledge of 6 major categories. It's fair to say that this is the very foundation, the entry-level knowledge about the major tea categories. It's very simple. However, more often than not, we found that people don't have a very clear understanding of these categories. Therefore, I like to have a deep dive into those 6 categories. Some technical glitch. So I will have a deep dive into 3 aspects of sharing. 1, the classification of tea. Secondly, the theories and logical foundations. Thirdly, the production and features of the 6 tea categories. Those 3 major parts. So what is the classification of teas? Professor Chen Chen, who is also my supervisor, has given the classification of teas, who said, and I quote, that the classification of teas is a rational system building process to define teas by category on the basis of variety study and comparison. It is used to systematically identify the differences in quality and processing technique among the variety of teas. So the main goal of such classification is to know the quality and the processing technique among the variety of teas. Say a tea has been presented in front of us, we first need to know the quality and the processing technique of the teas. That is the very reason why we want to do the classification of teas. Otherwise, there would be hundreds of thousands of teas in the market. Say, if you look at the tea, an insider or an expert will know that this is the oolong tea. Why is that? We have some evidence to support our theories. The theories and foundations of the classification is from Professor Chen Qian, who is shown on the slide in 1981, and he used to be my supervisor. This classification was proposed in the last century, a very thorough way of classification from the 1930s. It's been more than 90, even 100 years since the first proposal of such classification. He proposed a way of classification based on the technologies, quality, main ingredients, and histories. So the thorough logics behind the classifications come into 4 folds, and each of them are significant to have the right classification. The most important one, and normally we will turn a blind eye to, is the fact that during the classification of teas, we normally neglect the quality of the tea. Well, this is a picture, a snapshot about the ingredients in the classification of teas. So one of the ingredients, a chemical ingredient, is a naphthalene or cycloparaffin content in the tea. So this is the main ingredient differences among the tea. You can tell the differences. If you can see the green tea, the ingredient has been dropped by 31%, yellow tea dropped 60%, the dark tea 77%, all the way to the black teas 99.64%. The oxidation content of this chemical ingredient has been varied in different types of tea. That marks the very important ingredient of the quality of the tea. So according to Professor Chen, that the ideal classification must be clear in the systematic nature of tea quality and the processing techniques. So we should have a right idea towards the systematic changes of tea ingredients. We need to follow that logical way before we can have the right classification. So the two folds can further determine the classification of tea. So green tea comes first, then yellow and dark tea, followed by white tea and oolong tea, lastly by the black tea. The 6 varieties, green tea, yellow tea, dark tea, white tea, oolong tea, and black tea, are the 6 varieties following the previous mentioned methodologies in the basic classification. The 6 categories has been determined as early as in the Qing Dynasty, which has been highly recognized by people. So the 6 varieties, together with the reprocessed teas, are nowadays widely accepted in the tea community. We may find that sometimes we don't have a very orderly way to the order of the 6 varieties. So we should have the 6 varieties of teas coming in this order based on the various theories that we have proposed. What is worthy of mentioning is that the systematic way of the quality of the teas is very important in classification. Sometimes while we're answering to the classification of the teas, quality together with the techniques are the 2 fundamental classifications, while turning a blind eye to the quality in the ingredients. So if we, in hindsight, the production and features of 6 teas varieties, if you look at the green tea, so following those 4 logics, the special techniques is fixation, because fixation is a very good way or a very important way to ensure the activation of the tea polyphenol oxidase. Green tea has the lowest oxidation of the tea polyphenol. The green tea leaves and infusions are the features. So it has the lowest oxidation of the tea polyphenol. In green tea, we've got 4 different types. One is the roasted green tea, baked green tea, sun-dried green tea, and steamed green tea. On the right pictures, you can tell the 4 pictures corresponding to the 4 different types. They are drastically different. For example, roasted green tea, baked, sun-dried, steamed. It's very all evident if you look at the picture. You can tell the different techniques. If you look at the roasted green tea, it's further divided into the slim roasted green tea, the round rolled up roasted green tea, and the flat roasted green tea. If you look at the slim roasted, sometimes we also call it the eyebrow shaped tea. So the name of slim roasted green tea may vary from the final shape of the dry leaves. If you look at the picture, so it looks like the eyebrow, very slim. Sometimes it was very highlighted and elevated. So if you look at the green tea, sometimes it will have the frost on top of the green leaf, and it's very squeezed, very slim. So normally it's very good in the green tea infusion. So it's got the aroma of chestnuts, and it's very refreshingly strong. Those are these type of the roasted green tea. Say in the northern part of China, the northern part of Huai River or Yellow River, people favor the roasted green tea because the aroma is really tasty. If you look at the rolled up roasted green tea, so this category include Zhu Cha, Yongxi, Huoqing, and Quangang, Huibai. So the orthodox rolled up tea when primary process is called Zhu Cha. So it's very streamlined, very simplistic. The aroma is very strong. So this rolled up roasted green tea smells really good. The flat roasted green tea, the mainly one is Longjing and Dafang tea. Say the Wesley Longjing shown on the slide is part of them. This is a picture of the Wesley Longjing. It's very flat and straight. So the roasted green tea tends to be very streamlined. It's very narrow, very tight. And the color of it is the light green, very refreshing, very bright, and the aroma is very strong. Sometimes the floral smells very good and refreshing, and it tastes really light. Sometimes it's the mint tea. Say this flat tea, say Longjing is very high-end tea. Another type of tea, say Biluotun, the green sparrow shape. If you look at the baked green tea, we've got the generally and specially baked tea. Generally baked tea, for example, it's used as the cha pi, used for the jasmine teas, or for the scenting flower teas. And other top grades, especially baked green tea, for example, Maofeng type like Huangshan, the Yellow Mountain Maofeng. This one is the Huangshan Maofeng, a very classic Maofeng, Huangshan Maofeng picture. So why the colors are different? Well, the roasted green tea has a rather furry greenish look, but the baked green tea has a bright green color. It is also not that condensed. It has the roasted green tea has a chestnut smell, and the baked green tea often has some refreshing aromatic smell.
It is not as strong as roasted green tea, but it is more refreshing than roasted green tea. So these are the differences and features of between roasted green tea and baked green tea. They are different in color, in shape, in organization, in structure, in smell, and in taste. This is sun-dried green tea. It is, again, different. This kind of green tea comes from a fixation, rolling, and drying process. The leaves of this green tea look straight and furred on the surface. It appears like the gift of sunlight. Well, it is often sold in cakes instead of loose tea, and it is often consumed as a loose tea instead of a cake, and it is often used to make compressed teas like pu'er tea. We can see the lips are rather thick. It is a bit brownish green. The soup is also yellowish and greenish. It has a refreshing smell, and you can see it is also slightly different to baked green tea and roasted green tea. The last green tea is steamed green tea. It uses steam for fixation. It has three grains, grain in color, grain in soup, and grain in leaves. So 3 grains, that's the feature of steamed grain. It also has a refreshing taste. Also, the leaves emit a nature aroma, slightly like grass or a seaweed. It also tastes a bit bitter, and for instance, Japanese teas like sencha, gorokoro, and tencha are all typical steamed green teas. In China, the Enshi Yulu and Yangxian Cha are also steamed green teas. So green tea is the first category of the 6 categories. It has the lowest oxidation reduction, so it has the highest tea polyphenols in green tea. The second is yellow tea. A key step in yellow tea is yellowing. Key features of yellow tea is yellow leaves and yellow infusion. As you can see, the tea leaves are yellow and the soup is yellow as well. It is not this yellow as appear on the screen. In reality, it is a bit light yellowish. It is apricot yellow. The yellower, the better the quality. So if your yellow tea has an apricot color, then that means it is good quality yellow tea. It can so yellowing, as I mentioned, is the important step. It may be yellowed for a whole night, for 12 hours, and etc. There are different yellowing techniques. Yellow tea can be further divided into 3 varieties: bud yellow tea, junior yellow tea, and senior yellow tea. And bud yellow tea, actually, for instance, Pingyang Huangtang, Junshan Nianzhen, Junshan Silver Needle, and Mengding Huangya are favored by the public. And we also have junior yellow tea and senior yellow tea, but the second and the third are of lower quality comparing to the bud yellow tea. Now, with better economic status, the general public normally favor the first category, bud yellow tea. So the processing technique, including 4 steps: fixation, rolling, yellowing, and drying. And as you can see, the dry leaves appear neat and sharp in a yellowish green hue, and it smells strongly aromatic. It also has a smell of corn. So high quality yellow tea should have a sweet smell similar to the smell of corns. And the color of the tea soup should have a apricot hue. This is the features of yellow tea. The more the more yellow it looks, the better the quality. So the best ones often have apricot colors. Pingyang Huangtang, or the Pingyang yellow tea, is the best of this category, and the classic features of this Pingyang yellow tea is apricot hue and corn smell. The third category is dark tea. The key step for dark tea is fermenting. As you can see, it has a oily black or dark brown color, and the soup looks brownish yellow or reddish brown. Here you can see a thermometer in the middle of the tea lips. If the temperature is too high, then it's time to stir it. The middle picture shows you the tea lips, and the last picture is the infusion. As you can see, the color of the tea leaves and the color of the tea soup of dark tea are darker than those of black tea. The oxidation level of dark tea is also higher than that of black tea. There are 3 subcategories of dark tea: loose dark tea, basket dark tea, and pressed dark tea. The third one is often tea cake, or sometimes tea put in bamboos. Liu Bao Cha, a typical tea for the second subcategory, basketed dark tea. As you can see, the Liu Bao tea leaves are dark brown, and the tea leaves, they appear evenly in size. It looks somewhat red. It smells pure and strong, and tastes thick and mellow. It has a distinctive smell similar to areca. Liu Bao tea is different to typical dark tea because it has a smell of areca, and it's also stored often in such pots. Traditional Liu Bao tea may not be dark tea. It can also be yellow tea. So, if without the fermentation process, Liu Bao tea can also be a yellow tea, because yellowing is a must step for Liu Bao tea as well. According to the national standards, such tea could only call themselves Liu Bao tea with the fermentation process. But sometimes in reality, if you think about the origin of Liu Bao tea, then Liu Bao tea was first a yellow tea, because it was yellowed for, because many of them were only yellowed for a night, and the tea soup often appears a reddish yellow. So when purchasing such Liu Bao tea, do bear in mind the differences of typical Liu Bao tea and traditional Liu Bao tea. Well, according to the national standards, Liu Bao tea should have this fermentation process. So this is just one point to bear in mind, because sometimes when you purchase those those traditional Liu Bao tea, it may have that reddish yellow color. That is because it hasn't gone through the fermentation process. In case you get confused about the differences. So moving on to the fourth category, white tea. This is an interesting category, because it uses the tea prophanyl oxidase in the processing period. And one key step in the processing period is weathering, and the tea prophenols got oxidized by the enzymes. So, white tea tastes rather different comparing to other teas. It has a pale green leaves and light-colored infusion. Well, it looks darker on the screen, but in reality, it looks much lighter. It has a apricot greenish color, very light color. 3 different types: Yinzhen or silver needles, Mudan or peony, and Gongmei and Shoumei. We put Gongmei and Shoumei into one subtype. They use different tea leaves, but these 2 different tea leaves are very similar. And for the peony, we use 1 bud 2 leaves or 1 bud 1 leaf as the ingredients, as the raw material. And Yinzhen or silver needle is the best in terms of quality. Well, let's take Baihao Yinzhen as an example. This type of tea best features white-furred leaves appearing like needles. The thicker the needle, the more white-furred, the better the tea leaves. It should have a silvery grayish color, and the tea soup should have a yellowish or apricot tint. It should smell aromatic. It should have a strong and refreshing and also sweet taste. It is a very popular product.
It's a very popular tea, and it tastes really good, very sweetish, very fresh, no bitter taste, so it's very popular. and another one is called white peony. So when you buy the white peony, you don't want to buy these very broken leaves. You need to buy the very thorough and very round peonies. So the infusion looks yellowish or apricot, smells a prolonged aroma and tastes fresh and sweetish. If you look at my picture on the slide, if you can buy the white peony, then it's the top quality. It's so you should refer to the picture to buy the good quality white peony. Those are the basic requirements. When it comes to this one is oolong tea. The main processing technique is called the leaves rocking. The quality feature is green leaves with red edges and orange or golden infusion. The leaves rocking by manuals, if you look at the picture on the left bottom, you can tell how or what the leaves rocking means. So you can see that the red edges is very obvious, and the green and orange with the infusion orange or golden color. So you can tell the right bottom picture, the different colors of the infusion. So actually the darker the color, the worse it was. So the left and the middle, the lighter color is better. Among oolong, we've got different types of oolong, say the North Fujian oolong, South Fujian oolong, Taiwan oolong, and Guangdong oolong. If you look at the pictures, you can tell the differences. The first one is the North Fujian oolong, the Da Hong Pao, or Rou Gui. The right top picture is the South Fujian oolong, the Tie Guan Yi oolong tea. The left bottom picture is the Taiwan oolong, the Gaoshan oolong. The right bottom is the Guangdong oolong, for example, Fenghuang Dantong. So the colors of the oolong teas, actually, the pictures on the slide are very typical. They were shot by myself through my mobile phones, so it's very real, and you can tell the colors. If you follow my TikTok, you can see many of the pictures that I have taken, and I will share them on my TikTok account. If you search the pictures on Baidu search engine, most of the colors were not real. So my pictures were very real. I keep the realness of the colors because I've taken the pictures by myself. You can tell that the oolong teas from 4 different regions are very different. Take the South Fujian oolong or Taiwan oolong, or the refreshing and light taste oolong, and you can tell the difference. And you will instantly know that this one is Tie Guan Yi and another one is the Gaoshan oolong, or this one is Dangcong, or the other one is the Wu Yi Yan tea. So because the shapes or the colors are very different. Take one example, the Zhaoan Baxian tea, or we call it the Baxian Dancong tea. The so-called the Dancong is that you have processed this step after step before it come out the real tea. Although it was not that popular, but the quality is very high. The most famous Fenghuang Dancong, actually in the same hill, they were in the Zhaoan region. It looks thick in shape and dark brown with slight amber in color. So the amber color is its feature. The fusion appears bright yellow. So these 2 infusion looks really good, orange and bright yellow. It tastes refreshingly good, a floral taste, and sometimes you may taste the very good, tasty and sweety taste. Although now it didn't cost much, but the quality is very high. So I highly recommend you to taste that tea. And the tea looks really beautiful. This is one type of the Dantong tea. The last type is black tea. The main processing technique is fermenting. So left bottom picture is the process of the fermenting. It's been covered by a cloth. The feature is the red leaves and infusion. It's very red. Compared with the dark tea, the infusion color is very different. The dark tea has a darker infusion, but it's more reddish. Although it's been translated in English, the black tea, but it didn't show the blackish color. It's got a golden color. It was not as dark as the dark tea. Normally, we divide them into three types: the Sutron Black Tea, the Congo Black Tea, and the Broken Black Tea. So the left picture is the Sutron Black Tea, and this one is the Congo Black Tea. The right top is the Qimen Congo Black Tea, and the right bottom is from Yunnan tea, and this one is the Broken Black Tea. If you look at the Sutron Black Tea, it is produced from the Ui mountain in Fujian province called the Lamsang Songchong or Xingchong Songchong. So it's very long, very slim. And the picture was taken by me today. Actually, it shows a very high quality of the Sutron Black Tea. And it's got a very strong pine smoke scent. And if you drink it, the infusion was the dark orange color. The mellow taste is similar to that of Longyan soup. And the aroma produces syrup-like dark golden infusion. So this is one of the most traditional type of black tea. It now has produced in a very small quantity. The Congo Black Tea is a unique traditional product in China. The biggest feature of it is that it's got a very compact leaf. When brewed, its fine and well-proportioned leaves of dark luster turn to a bright red color, emitting a sweet and mellow aroma. Slightest differences in quality can be found due to varied places of origin and plant strains. Those are the basic features. It's quite sweet in its aroma. This is Xiaoye Congo Black Tea. The Xiaoye Zhong compared with the 大叶种 is quite different. 小叶种 is darker. So it's blackish and roundish. The 大叶种 is very golden. Normally it shows the brownish. Two types of teas, you can tell the differences from the two pictures. The last one is Broken Black Tea. It's very thick, strong, and fresh. The main processing techniques, say the twisting cuttings, broken black teas, divided into 4 types. The orthodox, the rotor vein, CTC, and the withered broken black tea. So we can tell that sometimes it can be divided into 4 varieties: the leaf tea, broken tea, sheet tea, and powder tea. Say it's got the OP, FOP. In the interest of time, actually I couldn't possibly have a deeper dive into each of the categories. So broken black tea is like that. Last, I'd like to conclude there were 6 categories: green, yellow, dark, white, oolong, and black tea. And we shouldn't mistaken the order of the tea varieties. If you mistaken the order or mixed up the order, you wouldn't show your expertise in the knowledge of the tea varieties. You should follow exactly this logic: green, yellow, dark, white, oolong, and black. So it's got 4 ideas behind it. One is special technique. It's got the features and quality. It's got the polyphenol oxidase. Sometimes we use those theories to explain something. Say the older generations would say that if it's possible to drink this tea